is our president?
Men can marry men, women can marry women, a black man is in the White House, this country's going to hell in a handbasket.
Yeah, take away my damn right to vote. I don't want to do it. We just spend too much time on our phones, like everybody does. And I know that's the cliche thing to say.
She made the bread! And the cheese! She made the cheese and she made homemade mozzarella.
Come to a comedy show and heckle the shit out of me and tell me I'm a slutty, non-traditional, manic, whatever, but...
Size though, because this would definitely give me a yeast infection.
I hate going to the gym and I can't stand being set up.
It feels like I just had a one-night stand and I'm like, where's his bed sheet?
How are you?
I'm good, babe. How are you?
Exhausted, not sleeping, hustling.
Shocking.
Shocking.
That's shocking for you.
Shocking, but more out of my mind than usual. But what is new with you? I want to catch up in your world. Where are you at now?
Same job, different radio station. Just how things go.
Just how things go.
Actually, I think you could just say 2024.
Yeah.
But I've been saying that now since 2020.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm ready for every year to stop saying "hold my beer."
Oh
to
my
the
gosh.
year prior to. Do you know what I mean? That's where I feel like I'm at. I love the bingo card joke.
Yeah.
Didn't have that on my bingo card.
Yeah.
But I'm like, at this point, it's a little played out because I haven't had any of this shit on my bingo card.
Yeah. No, it does feel like as if there was, pre-pandemic life felt a little bit more predictable and it was still pretty fucking crazy. But now it just kind of feels like the rule is there are no rules right
Facts.
now. Yeah.
Facts. And then I also do want to say, I've got a new scapegoat for everything crazy that happens in the world, and it's Cat Williams.
Oh.
I feel like he set the tone for 2024 with his interview, with Shannon Sharp. And it's now it's a repeating joke on my radio show. I'm just whenever anything crazy happens, I'm like, Cat Williams.
That's it.
But he did say it was going to be the year, of truth telling and And it's funny because I think there's a lot of things, in certain industries that people that have been around a long time have seen coming. Yeah. And it's every industry kind of has its reckoning, right? We've seen it in the financial world. We've seen it in the world of entertainment. You see it in the world of politics. And it's just it just keeps on going. And it's maybe the older you get, the more you realize this is just a cyclical part of life.
Of everything. Yeah, or as my Italian mother always says, the cream always rises to the top, is what she says.
Or what you do in the dark will come to light. It's only a matter of time, which makes me really go back in my mental vault.
And you're like, have I done something?
Yeah. What have I done?
Oh, I know. The thing is, we're all going to get we all have done something to cancel us already. There's always going to be something that somebody's going to say or somebody's going to hold against you. And you're like, you're probably right. I probably was a dick in line at Starbucks that day. I'm sorry. I was in a bad mood.
Fact.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I want to know your thoughts on Diddy, speaking of reckonings and truth-telling. I want to know.
So...
I know there's probably millions of thoughts.
You know
on
what's
this.
wild is that I've been having the Diddy conversation for years. 4 years.
You know what's even wilder? I paid so little attention to him because I just never cared for him. And
Well, I think part of it is because I grew up in that era. I grew up in the Biggie, Tupac, drama era.
Yeah.
I remember when Big was shot. Well, obviously when both of them were shot, but then I remember watching Diddy's rise. Yeah. To fame, to that next level fame. We always knew him. Yeah. You know what I mean? Because he was the guy behind everybody. Yeah. But then it changed. And then I came down to Miami and I went to school. Long story short, I ended up working in the industry. And I have for a very long time said Diddy sold his soul to the devil. I've said it for a long time. And the reason why I said it was I never understood how one person could be so successful, yet everybody around them
hates them.
It's not even hates them, has been hit by so much trauma. Mace was so fucked up, he had to go to Africa and become a minister. Do you understand what I'm saying? You go from wearing shiny silver suits and driving backwards in a Bentley at 1,000 miles an hour, right? Or whatever, and dancing around in music videos to Africa and becoming a minister?
Yeah, I just wrote a joke this morning about you fucked Cassie up so badly, she married a white man who wears cowboy hats.
You know what I'm saying?
You really ruined her
the
life.
happiest she's ever been in her life. Yeah. But it's just think about it. Biggie, gone.
Yeah.
Faith Evans was on drugs.
Yeah.
Little Kim, does she even exist anymore? We've all seen you know what I mean?
His ex-wife Kim Porter, who died of quote unquote pneumonia. that escalated quickly.
There were other people, like there were situations in Atlanta years ago where, you know, kind of peripheral members of his team were killed. Like people have gone to jail, people have been addicted to drugs, their careers never take off. We've heard the stories, and this is an industry-wide thing about people being ripped off. You know, you're hearing all these kids from these MTV shows making the band, you know, talking about these trash deals that we've known about this.
Yeah.
So like
the boy band drama, Backstreet Boys and NSYNC having all their money taken from Riley Perlman.
Again, it's part of the history, but Diddy specifically, these conversations have been being had in, you know, the wings. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? But nobody ever really wanted to come forward and say it. Even when the stuff initially broke, I can guarantee you that there were office conversations being had about how do we approach this?
1,000%.
Because if we don't know if it's really, if this is gonna be the actual crumbling of the house of Bad Boy, like, do we watch what we say? Because at the end of the day, he's Diddy, and he's damn near a billionaire, and he's, you know, affiliated with so many entities, you know. And then
he's
I
still
think
powerful, even if it's wielding his power for bad. It's powerful still.
But I think as soon as the raids happened, I think as soon as
the video,
really and truthfully, as soon as he was forced to settle that lawsuit with Cassie, and I say this because that was not his choice. Yeah. We know this. Yeah. But you know, if you know anything about corporate America, you know that there are other entities, there are other people that make decisions like that. You know, when you're talking about stocks and you're talking about bottom lines and you're talking about investors and having to answer for things, you think that they were gonna let that man go to court and have all of this? You know, he sits on boards. His name is affiliated with billion-dollar brands. They were like, yeah, no, you're going to settle.
And more, exactly, more than anything, other people's money and clout and power were affected.
1,000%. So, you know, I think as soon as that happened, and then, like I said, the raids and more people, it was like, okay, it's safe now to take a more vocal approach. If you notice, there are some prominent shows out there that really tiptoed around the conversation like, this is crazy. And now
it's all right,
especially after the video. Especially after the assault video, you know,
now that we had evidence. Exactly. Yeah. Well, it's interesting. It's a very sheep mentality, and it always disappoints me about society, and it disappoints me whenever I see it in my personal friend groups as well too, because I mean, this is just one example of, again, like countless people that we can point to that have done abhorrent things, and everybody waits to fully cancel them. Because you're right, they want to be on what they think is the right side of history, and they don't want to take the stance and then look wrong. But it's, I mean, I'm looking at personal relationships differently in light of this, and it's an issue that touches me because of domestic violence.
For sure.
You know, but it's also like, it's almost more painful. People were like, rewatching the Cassie video must have been painful. I'm like, totally, it was hard, because to be totally transparent, like, that happened to me in my relationship. Like, I was dragged by my hair and pulled up staircases and hit, and it was an insane time in my life. But like, while that was triggering, what was more triggering was watching people that I considered close friends, like, well, we don't know if he's guilty or not, or we don't know, or hold out and be so afraid to believe evidence, to believe
what they saw,
video footage, and believe what they saw. And I was like, this is more painful, because it took me back to that relationship when I was leaving my ex, and I lost friends because they didn't want to side on either. They don't want to pick a side. They love us both. And I'm like, when there's abuse or corruption like that, or abuse, there is no side. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, there's no, to me, there's no side. Like, it's like, it's clear, like, there's abuse, you know?
Well, I find it ironic. Like, that's a personal friendship in your situation. Yeah. You don't know this man.
I know.
He's not paying your rent. He's not adding any value to your life except for maybe some nostalgia. Yeah. You know what I mean? Yeah. Or what, a bottle of vodka? I don't know. Like, you know what I'm saying?
And the vodka's okay, to be honest.
Let's be real.
Let's be real. It's a little overrated.
If you like syrup in your, you know what I mean? Like, if you don't really drink vodka if you're drinking the flavored versions in particular.
Exactly. Like, we get it. I remember my first high school house party.
Yeah. You know what I'm saying? It's like, you don't even need the orange juice to make a sex on the beach when you're using Ciroc Peach. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Again, no shade. I'm a real alcoholic. You know what I'm saying? I like real alcohol.
My kind of vodka is rubbing alcohol. Right.
Yeah. Just give it to me straight. Like, rocks, no ice. Yeah. You know what I mean? I joke, but not joke.
Yeah. No. But lay it out there.
But no, that's the more wild part about it. And I think that was part of the narrative that we started actually tapping into. And I was like, listen, there's no denying what this individual contributed to music, right? There's no denying what that era was, what he meant to that era, all of these things when you're talking about fashion, the culture, and all of it. Like, they're not mutually, you know what I'm saying? Like, you can have that conversation, and he can also be the devil. You know what I mean? Like, he can be El Diablo. Like, you know what I mean? Like, we've seen it with other people, you know, that can put on a front. And, you know, there's a lot of folks out there that would love to throw around terms like well beyond narcissist, sociopath. You know, there are very high functioning, malicious nutsos out there. And he's, I think, clearly one of those individuals. But it's just, you know, it was a full circle moment for me, for somebody who's been in the industry for as long as I have. And again, grew up in that era. But had seen the writing on the wall for a very, very long time. Like, I watched him at an event. What the fuck? One of his employees. Like, so severe. Like, it was so dismissive. And to watch it, like, it's almost like one of those things where you're like, God, I hope nobody ever talks to me like that in front of other people. You know, we also make the kids cross the bridge to go get the cheesecake, right? And people are like, oh, that's wild. And it's like, well, that's the tip of the iceberg.
Well, we were talking about this off camera, and I kind of want to bring it back. I mean, this is in the context of people we know and have worked with and whatnot, but like, it's almost like that level of malice and that level of evil or that level of mistreatment and disrespect, when you encounter it in real life, it doesn't feel real. It's almost what you were saying, like when you watched his interaction with his employee and you and I were talking about certain things, like you think that mean girl that's gonna like stab you in the back is just you almost want to believe it's just a figment of something in a movie, or it's just something that you know exists. It's like a unicorn. And then you work with that toxic person, or you see that celebrity shit on their assistant and you're like, oh my God, I actually didn't think it's real.
Yeah. I will say this though, like, you know, because it's funny. It's one of those conversations that you have a lot, I think, probably in any workplace, but especially in entertainment-based workplaces, right? We talk about how different things are now, you know, and you talk about the new generation of people that are coming in, and
we slap a rainbow on it and call it Happy Pride.
But it's funny to me because, you know, I think that a lot of times when you hear older individuals bitching and complaining, there's really a level of jealousy there. Like, at how self-aware some of these younger individuals are, and at their ability to set boundaries for themselves, and at their, you know, lack of willingness to put up with bullshit. Now, I'm not saying that, you know, the work ethic conversation isn't necessarily justifiable. But it certainly isn't a carte blanche across the board. You know, you can apply it to every person that's a member of Gen Z or below a certain age. But I really do think that older people who have had to deal with workplace aggression, trauma, misogyny, toxicity are angry that young people walk into buildings and businesses now and are like, this is some bullshit. I'm not staying for this. Like, y'all got me. Oh, what? No, I'm taking a vacation. I'm taking a personal day. I'm taking a whatever. I need a mental health break. And we're like, what?
Well, and that could even happen. Well, it's this fear of this disbelief of choice. This disbelief that we like took our own free will into our hands and said no, started a business, didn't have one of the 10 careers that our fathers and grandfathers, you know, deemed acceptable for us. And I think you're 100% right. It's this jealousy of being free. It's a misunderstanding of it, and this jealousy that you can wear what you want and you're so comfortable with them.
But I think that's also why you see that divisiveness when it comes to a conversation like a Diddy or a Weinstein or some of these other very prominent, powerful individuals, especially when you start getting into, you know, the age of some of the individuals who take a little longer
to believe.
Yeah. Do you know what I mean? Because they came up in a time when that was so normalized. That kind of behavior. You know, like, let's be very clear. You and I have had, and we keep, you know, it's funny because we joke and then we get into very serious conversations. But like, I'm sure if we were to pull up all the law books, for the states in the United States of America, somewhere we'd find where it's still okay you can't rape your wife.
Yeah.
Right? Or you can't,
No, they exist. They 100%. Yeah. There's, yeah.
And I know that they're not, commonplace, but they were at one point in time. So I say that because it's kind of like there's somebody watching that video, and in the back of their mind, they're going, well, what did she do? You know what I'm saying?
100%.
And as disgusting and as unfathomable as that is for many of us.
I know where you're going with. You almost empathize because you're like, you don't know any better.
Like, and we don't, but it's like, you have to be willing, I think, to have those conversations with people and explain, like, you feel that way because it was normalized for you. They're not wrong for being completely
anti this,
like, or finding it abhorrent.
Right.
Like it's you have to understand that we have evolved. I use that word very loosely.
Yeah, some of us have, some of us haven't. Yeah,
as a society, or at least as far as what is deemed acceptable. And it's difficult because I think it's still very real, and you're walking into these places where that dynamic is still extremely. It's visceral. It's like you can feel it. You can feel that there are people going, I don't understand why you're so upset about this.
Yeah.
And there are other people that are going,
I don't understand why you're not.
What?
Well, and it's that lack of willingness to have the conversation. I mean, I felt it on a micro level with, I feel like you and I are the same. I'm very close with my mom, and I see you have a similar relationship with yours. And my mom is a baby boomer, right? Like, she's 71 now, 72, and I'm 33. And I have actually watched my mom and I's ability to actually forge a friendship and forge a relationship outside of our parent-child dynamic has helped both of us grow tremendously. Her a lot more, but me, her a lot more. And I remember all of her views that she, and I don't fault her for this, but embedded in me were the reason and at the crux of my worst mistakes in my 20s. Because it was a way that I was restricting and resisting myself and putting myself on a weird pedestal and not seeing that other things are possible, or these mistakes are okay, or these things happen. Like, every single thing that was passed down to me from her, from my grandmother, from generations past, like, I would never let a man ever lay a finger on me. Like, that's a man lay a finger on me. Are you kidding? And like, that was ingrained in me. And then I was in a severely physically abusive relationship for 3 years. And that got beat out of me by life. You know what I mean? I was like, oh, wait a minute. I just became the thing I swore I'd never do. Or like, oh, I don't know how accidental pregnancies happen. Like, it's not that hard. Just be on birth control and just track your, 2 abortions in. Yeah. And I mean, I feel like it forced me into a new version of myself, but it forced my mom into a new version of herself. And, she was by my side during these abortions. We're best friends. And it was more devastating to her than it even was for me. Just to her Catholic guilt, whatever. And then I remember years later, her knowing how open I am about it, how much I advocate for it, I raise money. She says to me in passing, she goes, "Oh, these girls, those, how stupid or how unnecessary some of these like some just." And I saw her like past creep back up, and I had to calmly look at her, and I was like, "Mom, remember, like, I've had abortions, so when you say something like that, kind of calling your daughter stupid." And then it was this like growth moment for, you know what I'm saying?
Well,
it's But I watched it, but what I will commend my parents for, that I think we're saying is lacking in older generations, is they are willing to have the conversation, or they are willing to see things differently.
But I think there's also, part of the blessing in that is you and your willingness to walk them through it repeatedly.
Yeah, repeatedly.
Well, and I say that because I think that there's a fine line. Like, when we have these conversations, it's like, I think that sometimes the intolerance goes both ways, right?
Totally.
I think that you have on the young end a level of intolerance for any sort of phobia,
right?
Or bad past behavior. but they're not willing to engage in the conversation. Do you know what I mean? And that's like, it's not fun all the time. Like, to me, like, I don't mind a good argument. I don't mind disagreeing with people, but a lot of folks.
I love confrontation. I love it. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. I know.
You?
I know. Shocker.
Never.
I know.
I'm waiting for the day you do an entire comedy show where it's just heckle me.
Oh,
heckle me. Like, bring it on. Like literally, I have no actual stand-up written. This is just going to be you coming for me and me engaging
I know.
you.
I actually, you know what? I should
That would
do
be
that.
really funny.
And it should be a really curated guest list, and I'll specifically invite certain people. And
So
I'll
it's
be
almost,
like,
it's almost like a roast, but not really.
but not
like,
really.
yeah.
I'm gonna be like, fucking have at
Yeah.
it. Yeah. But it's what I love about you, because I feel like a confrontation in its most basic form and basic definition isn't necessarily negative. It's just about confronting things and like addressing them. Yeah.
And having a dialogue. Like that's what's missing in my personal opinion. And it's funny coming from somebody who talks for a living. Yeah. Dialogue is missing. You know what I mean? But the irony of it, and you've now experienced this in, real time firsthand, is even in mediums where dialogue is necessary, i.e. radio, right?
It's still
We're
not
severely
happening.
limited.
Yeah.
And there's also people that listen in on your conversation. And I feel like that was one of the things that I love, because I've had the opportunity to be in many different mediums now in the radio space. Like I've done, hip hop and R&B, and I've done top 40, and I've done, more of a hot AC, so a little bit of an older leaning. I'm back in hip hop and R&B, and the dynamics and the emails that come down and what you're checked on and how you're supposed to approach different topics is so telling. So telling.
By the medium?
By
the format?
By the medium, but by the people in charge of those mediums. Like how you're supposed to handle, like I've shared this before, like I will never forget, I worked for a different company at the time, and the 2016 election was happening. And I'm watching everything unfold. Clearly, I did not vote for Donald Trump. Yeah. And I remember just seeing little, and I was like, they kept saying the polls got it wrong, and I was like, polls didn't get shit wrong. Your friends lied to you. Yeah. So like, you know what I mean? Like nobody wanted to admit that that's who they were voting for. So like,
the numbers, like. It was insane that people were like, something's wrong with the numbers. Or
but I'm like, no, your friends lied. Your friends heard you talking like, oh yeah, moral, I'm gonna vote for that. You know what I mean? Like, no, I'm not voting. So I was like, so that was one thing that I posted on Facebook, right? Yeah. And then there was the third party candidate who was taking 3% of the vote. And if you remember, that was literally what Hillary Clinton lost by, right?
Yeah,
the 3%.
yeah,
and I was
the
like,
margin.
3% matters. Yeah. I was irate. Yeah. And then I just, I drank a little bit more Johnny Walker and went to bed. Yeah. And woke up and, oh my God, he's president. Right?
Yeah, right. And then you drank more Johnny Walker.
Yeah, right. And then I went to work and went on the radio. And I'm just
that was the morning I got drunk.
Yeah. But I went into work, and I want to say within the next day or two, I was called into my boss's office.
Oh no.
And the GM of the radio station had screenshot my posts and had basically told her to check me, because I had just recently gotten my own afternoon show. And if you know radio, afternoon and morning drive and afternoon drive are the biggest, they're considered primetime slots.
Biggest slots, yeah.
And his words to my boss were, she's going to alienate her audience. You need to check this now.
Which I would argue, in order to build an audience also too, that requires like curating, and building an audience requires alienation as well too.
Well, for sure.
As I see that with my comedy, like I've had people come see me headlining because they see a clip online, and then they see my viewpoints through my comedy and my experiences, and they're like, I can tell they're not going to come back to a show. And I'm like, that's okay. That's how you build an audience. Yeah. Like it's through alienating who doesn't align and leaving room for who go on.
No. But it was funny because I was on a top 40 station at the time, which is considered general market. I had come from a hip hop and R&B, a more urban background where you were expected
to have an opinion,
use your microphone to talk about the things that are important to your audience, to the culture, to, whatever you want to reference it as. And it was just funny because having that experience now, it's so much easier for me to understand that my point of view is mine, but there's a large swath of the population that does not agree with me. And you don't realize that when you're constantly surrounded by like-minded individuals. Sure. Do you know what I'm saying? And so, yes, I love the fact that you can have those dialogues, and, eventually down the road, that was probably one of the reasons why I got fired. I know this is the YIKES podcast. I did eventually get fired. Yeah. Was that you couldn't tell me not to talk about the things that were important to me?
No,
like, I feel like if you're blessed with the opportunity to have one of these in front of you and you have an audience, it is your duty. It's kind of like being an American, right? God, I don't give a vote. I don't care who votes.
Yeah.
It's your duty.
Yeah.
Vote.
Yeah. And there's
right?
and remember that even though our country is kind of a little bit of a, a bit of a shitstorm right now, it's also still a hell of a lot fucking better than most countries, even just in the fact that we can vote, that there is some semblance of democracy and your voice can count.
But I hate
when people are like, I'm like,
I don't even care, I don't like their
fucking vote.
And I'm like, well then don't bitch. I don't want to hear you. Don't say another word to me for the next, and if you don't vote in the midterm, I don't want to hear nothing about what doesn't get happen or what doesn't get passed, because obviously you know nothing about how our government works. Yeah. But it's the same level of responsibility. If you have a microphone in front of you, you have an obligation to use it.
You're preaching to the choir. I mean, one of my biggest pet peeves in my industry is, and especially now because it does kind of feel like a lot of people feel like they can do stand up. Which is crazy.
Wild.
It's the internet. I think the internet. No,
they watched Marvelous Miss Maisel and just
that too. That's why I'm like, fuck those shows, like legit, because I'm like, they're giving people this delulu that it's accessible to everybody. But to your point, I'm not trying to gatekeep stand-up. I'm not trying to be a mean guy or like be a weird, evil bouncer. But I don't think it's the art form. Like, not everybody should work in radio. Not everybody should have a podcast. Not everybody should do stand-up. And guess what? That's okay.
Yeah.
It's okay. And my biggest pet peeve in my given field is when you do have a mic in front of you and you do have 10 minutes of time or 20 minutes. I don't even give a fuck if you have 3 minutes of stage time and you're saying nothing. It's stupid. It's hacky. It's wordplay. Like, it's just a personal pet peeve of mine, because I'm like, man, you're going to really do comedy and you're going to have nothing worth saying about the world around us. Like, somebody goes to me at a show, they go, oh, I didn't know you were a political comic. I'm like, I'm really not. But
it's topical.
It's topical.
Like,
I'm a human being and a citizen. Well, I'm a woman in America, so I'm barely that. You know what I mean? Like,
facts.
Literally. Like, I'm like, so I'm not really a political comic, but I guess when you live in the times we do and you pay attention to the world around you.
Politics is comical right now. Like, let's be honest.
Right. And if it's things that are affecting me and my rights and people around me,
like,
that's the stuff I feel inclined to write material about. I don't really, it's almost to the point where I want to throw up in my mouth when I hear another, like, dating's hard, right? I'm always like, yeah, like, I get it, and it is, but I don't know. I yearn for more, because having a microphone in front of you is a privilege. So I couldn't agree with you more.
I know, like, women have worked so hard to have the right to vote, but wouldn't it be nice to, like, not have to vote right now? You know, I kind of want someone to take that right away from me, you know?
Yeah, well, yeah, it would be relieving a burden. Yeah.
Give them November. Yeah. November's coming. You never know what could happen. It could be here before you know it.
You never know. Yeah, and that's another thing where a reckoning just happened with him getting indicted, Trump, and convicted, and everyone's like, we don't know, it's bullshit. Since when can't you fuck a porn star and have much money? And I'm like, what is
But can I ask you, like,
on?
how did we get to a place, though? Like, real talk.
Yeah.
Like,
real talk, because obviously Kimmy and I have been bullshitting. You know?
No. Like, but this used to be, and it's such a cliche phrase anyway, but like,
no, it's true though.
We know that all of the presidents have fucked outside. We know this.
Yeah.
Kennedy, Clinton. Like, I'm not denying that it happens, right? We know this.
Yeah.
And
they also sometimes don't need to be president to fuck outside of their marriage.
It's just a man thing. When women do it, so, like, listen, equal opportunity fucking
I know
happening.
This is crazy. Men with a lot less money and power still cheat on incredible women.
Yes, they do. Yes, they do.
Yeah. Here we are. Anyway, no,
I ain't never dated a president, but I've certainly been cheated on. but
I wish I got that press for giving somebody a blowjob.
I just watched that remember impeachment.
Yeah.
Yo.
Yeah. Also, Monica Lewinsky, I want to have drinks with her. I'm not gonna lie, because she took something that was his really wrong, her wrong. Okay, you know, obviously, like, okay, not a great moment for either party in this instance, but like, took something that ultimately was more so his wrongdoing, but obviously because she's the woman and that got shamed, death threats, vilified, and I don't know if you've seen her recently, but she is.
Owns
it.
Yeah.
She's funny about it.
Yeah. She's incredible.
It's incredible. And I'm like, fucking hell yeah, go.
And I was definitely like growing up in that time where you were like, what a slut.
Yeah.
I mean, like, whatever.
Yeah.
But like, can we put this in perspective real quick? That was what, 1998?
Yeah.
Here we are, 18 years later, and the man who was campaigning on grab him by the pussy was put in the White House. We tried to impeach the other guy for getting his dick sucked once he'd already gotten there.
But it was just, it was just locker room chat with the boys,
like,
you know? Just locker room chat.
Locker room chat, which is so funny because he's so fucking disgusting and fat. I'm like, you've never been in a locker room.
But where is the like? How did American society devolve that quickly? Where getting your penis sucked, because you were president, right? Became an impeachable, like, this is what we're running on. And granted, there were other things that I know this, but like, I'm just saying,
but
you wanted him out,
money.
but then you literally knew what a dirtbag this other guy was. Yeah. And you were like, that's my president.
And you know what the fuck? I know. But you know.
Are we blaming that on iPhones too?
I think it's a mirror. I think who we elect and put in power and who we worship is a mirror to our own mentality. And that's the reason that we worship and elect these people. So I always say when people are like, I can't believe people still listen to him, or I can't believe despite all these things. I'm like, I hate to tell you, but America's pretty fucking racist. And America's pretty homophobic and sexist and the reason he will continue to get elected and the reason his bullshit will continue to slide is because people want someone in power who has what they know are crazy thought. Like, it makes them feel better because they're like, oh, I say the N-word in private and public too, and I think women shouldn't vote, and I think gay people should die, so I want to keep this guy in power because it makes me feel better but about my you see what I'm saying, my day-to-day life.
Oh no, for sure. I also just think it's funny though,
it's dystopian
that we elected him coming out of the most unproblematic president probably in the history of this country. A man who has never been accused of cheating on his wife, a man who has never had a scandal. You know, he was in there for 8 years, got us through one of the worst economic, periods.
Well, that's what happens when you lose the love of your life. We lost Obama. And now we fucked a war.
And now we just, every fuckboy on the planet. Like,
exactly.
How big of a... You're next.
Yeah,
you're
America.
Next.
America was going through it when we allowed Trump after.
Like, or people were to your point. Yeah, people just showed how upset. Like, because you ain't got nothing else to be mad about with this man. Yeah, we had the lowest rates of unemployment. Like, we can go through all the things that they like to attribute to 45, but he inherited all of those things. Like, let's say he really only had 2 non-COVID years in office. Yeah, and he inherited a scaling economy, low unemployment. He inherited all of these things. And then 2 years later, we had a global pandemic and he did all to hell. Do you know what I'm saying? Yeah. But but I'm like, what was your real problem? Like, what were you so irate about that you didn't want the next person from that? And it to me, it just speaks to the fact that, they were upset that a brother had gotten into office.
Yeah, 100%.
No, the country's moving way too fast. LGBTQ rights are on the rock. Wait,
a black man is our president?
Men can marry men. Women can marry women. A black man is in the White House. This country's going to hell in a handbasket.
Yeah, and they think that that's dystopia. They think that that's the falling apart of the country and society.
Women, women being CEOs. Women graduating at a higher rate than men.
I have to ask your thoughts on this. Like, okay, so that brings me to the trad wife trend, the trad traditional wife.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts? Because I have done some podcasts where I were on panels and that got brought up. And to our point about like what do you think about this and traditional women and traditional female values and how that's all going to shit and that's why you can't find a man because God forbid you fucking act on your sexual desires or have an opinion. And I literally had to kind of blink when I was on a podcast panel because I was like, am I in 2024 or like 1931? Like I was like, what year am I in? But what are your thoughts on that? I just want to
if that works for you, that works for you. Like if that to me is what feminism is. Yeah. Having the choice. To do whatever the fuck you want to do as a woman. That means if you want to stay home, raise kids, bake fucking bread from scratch. I saw this the other day. I saw a woman who actually made her own butter. It wasn't even just that she made her own bread. This hoe made her own butter and then made her own bread from, her kids wanted a fucking grilled cheese. They had to wait 3 days because she needed the yeast to, I don't know how long they had to wait, but it was wild. She said, I asked my kids what they wanted for lunch. They said grilled cheese. She made the bread. And the cheese. She made the cheese and she made homemade mozzarella. And mind you,
I would
she's
marry
also
her, I'm not gonna lie.
Do you want to know why I saw this though? Because to your point, that was trending, and I came across a post, and somebody said she's an influencer.
Yeah.
Obviously. No, but she's also like a supermodel. I forget what her name is. It starts with an N. And somebody said she's not a trade woman or whatever it is. She's a supermodel who married well. Her husband's gorgeous. Like, it was all these, they were like, she's not just trying to be the little woman. She's like, are you kidding? She's got a whole career.
Yeah.
Like, stop equating one with the other.
Oh,
Like,
right.
she's a woman with a life of privilege. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like,
she can make her own mozzarella and butter.
Yeah,
right. Because she has the time and the
but
ingredients.
She also has her own, she has 3 babies. She's 22.
Yeah.
A super successful modeling career. Her husband is also a super successful model, comes from a bougie, wealthy Utah Mormon family.
Yeah.
Daddy made guitar strings or something. I don't know. But the whole situation, it's like, do your research before you jump on a trend and decide that this is what you, but at the end of the day, if that's what makes her happy, making her own damn mozzarella, and she got the time to do it, honey, go with grace.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Do what you want. Well, I agree. And I think the thing about these trends and these ideals and these lifestyles is that everybody needs to have it be one answer and one end all be all for everyone. And it needs to be so exclusive.
But it's also like, but don't blame me for why divorce rates are skyrocketing.
Correct.
Because I have a job. Like, I'm not hating on you. Like, do you? But I don't understand why as women in particular, because if you go in the comments on a lot of these, it's not just Neanderthal men.
No.
Right? It is other women coming for women.
Yeah.
Right? And I'm just like,
it's internalized misogyny.
I'm like, why do you care? Like, at the end of the day, more power to you, toots.
Yeah.
Like, if that's what makes you happy, go. Like I said, go with grace. Do it. But if I want to have a job, if I want to get a PhD, if I want to run the country, like, why does that
me do that?
Why does that make me less of a woman? Like, that is what we fought for. We fought for the right to make our own choices.
Yeah.
And we've had this conversation ad nauseum. You know, I have a great friend named Lenny, who we love to do battle with.
Yeah.
And my whole point is, like, women also, like, and we're all, the other thing is this. Have you not noticed, women have historically, like, I'm talking about biblical, had jobs.
Yeah, I know. They always
We work the farm, we make the yarn, we do the, we do all of these things. Like it's only, like, what are you talking about? The Leave It to Beaver years?
Oh yeah,
that's
you when all of a sudden it was
ideal of like 10 years in American history where, television was putting out these shows, and
where women were quiet and complacent and in the kitchen and with the kids, and that's it.
And then you can, once again, marketing and the rest of it. And here while you're in your fishnet stockings and you're vacuuming your whatever, you were sold an ideal. I don't know how realistic that ever was.
No, it wasn't.
Right? Yeah. But if you live in 2024 in a city like, say, Miami, chances are, unless you're with a Bitcoin bitch or something, like, you need 2 jobs.
Yeah, well, everybody does at this point,
like,
regardless of gender or traditional wife mentality or not or whatever.
But this idea that women always just, like, again, if you were to go and pull up the archives or just talk to a history major and talk about life in 1600, they
would be like, gender didn't really matter. Like, we didn't have these constructs or these biases. If somebody needed to go hunt and gather berries for dinner, they fucking did it. Yeah. Whether they had a dick or a vagina
and even
or
if your
whatever.
Husband, if your husband died from cholera, you know what I'm saying? Guess what? You went and you yoked up the ox and you plowed the fucking field. Like, at the end of the day, the shit had to get done. So it's like this weird ideal that women just sat home and looked pretty and did nothing. Like, I'm just like, have you ever read a book? Like, did you take any sort of history whatsoever? Because this pretension of, like I said, a very small window of time being the dictator for what a, high quality woman is or what we should be aspiring to is just wild to me.
But see, those are the words that they use that drive me fucking insane. And that's what it's exactly what you said. I think this country has an issue with minding its business. That's what I've always said. And that's why it's always funny to me whenever people get very worked up about like gay marriage, just pick that one issue. I'm always like, mind your fucking business. Whatever anybody wants, however they want to identify or dress or have sex with or build a life with, it shouldn't matter to you. Like, literally mind your business.
Well, yeah, unless it
If I have
directly
an
impacts
abortion,
you, which it doesn't.
How would it have impacted you that I had an abortion? You didn't even know I had an abortion until I just told you. You've actually been living life unaffected and unbothered, and I terminated a pregnancy, and it hasn't impacted you. But now that you know this information, it's ruining your ideals in your country. So I say that we have an issue with minding our business, and I think my issue with the traditional wife conversation, I'm with you 100%. If you want, I have friends that are like this. Not many. Most of them are like us that want careers and want our own life. But I do have friends that are like, I need a ring in a year and he's going to pay for it and he needs to do. And I'm like, good for you. My wish for that mentality is that I wish those women knew what else is available to them and that it's not that taboo to have that career
But guess
or
what?
act on that sexual desire.
But Brittany, and I will say this.
Yeah.
There are some women who grow up and all they want to do is get married. And I shouldn't even say it that way.
Yeah.
Their goal is to get married, have a family,
Settle.
raise. Now, you can't say that though because it's not settling.
Yeah.
No, but to them it's not. So again, stop putting your judgment on them.
That's true.
You're being that person.
Well, I say settling also too in the sense of like
settling down. Like it is what it is.
Like, my life is set now.
Well,
Is
ironically enough that it would be in the word. Right?
Exactly.
Oh, you're settled down. Like you settled.
You
like,
settled down,
You know
literally.
what I mean? So I get what you're saying, but it's just like,
And if there was a lesson we could have learned from Hillary Clinton, is she too thought that her life was settled and great and good, and her husband was still getting blowjobs from other women. So you're never really settled. But I think I say that because again, not everybody, and I try to preface everything that I say with not everybody, because that's another issue with older generations. There's this desire to generalize
All
and
or
carte
nothing.
blanche
Yep,
and all
yep,
or
yep,
nothing.
yep.
And it's like, hey,
Always, never.
I think the gray area is so beautiful. I actually think a lot of people have anxiety with the gray area. I'm like, no, but the gray area can either be unclear or it can be potential. What if a little bit of this is true and a little bit
it's like the
of
Kinsey
this
scale,
is
right? Like
Yeah.
we're all somewhere on the
Exactly. And that's where they're like, oh, all this bullshit that sexuality is a spectrum. I'm like, let it be a spectrum. It opens up so many more.
Have you seen what's about to come out like on one of the streaming services?
No.
It's like Our Queer Planet.
Oh, yeah.
And it's the whole documentary on like just how gay the planet actually
It is.
and how
Yeah.
like the whole like two sexes is like a wild mischaracterization just if you take into account actual nature.
Yeah.
I cannot wait. I think it actually probably just came out like either this week or whatever, but I can't wait to watch
and
it.
all of our boomer uncles are in the hospital right now.
Not penguins. What?
No, I actually
Lions? Not the most masculine animal in the jungle.
He likes getting pegged? Oh no! Or like all these rumors about Diddy being gay. I was like, if Diddy were actually gay, first off, if he were gay, women would feel safer around him. That's number one. And I'm actually working on a bit about that, but about how like conservative South and all these pro-lifers are so anti-abortion, the ability to terminate a pregnancy. And I'm working on a bit where I'm like, what if you remind them that that baby could turn out gay? Oh no!
Yeah.
Then all of a sudden they'll be like, kill it. We love abortion. Like end it. But I say that I think it's this
correlation.
The correlate, yeah. It's
Do a study.
Look at the numbers. It's this leaning towards extremes, I think, and I think you touched on something that I want to, as we land our beautiful plane. But I want to. It's why is traditional wife high quality woman? Mm-hmm. Why, if I'm what you would consider to be less traditional, why does that make me lower quality? That's what I think is triggering for me, for lack of a better term. Mm-hmm. That's where I'm like, don't equate my value or my level of quality or what I can bring to a relationship based on traditions. Mm-hmm. It's the same thing I say whenever like a comedy show is like, is it family friendly? And I'm like, you don't know my family. You don't know my values. You don't know what is traditional for me.
Yeah.
You know? So I think that's where... And that's where, like, I blew a gasket on a podcast about this because women, I go, again, have your traditions. I don't care that you're happily married. I don't care that you're okay with the fact that your husband's the breadwinner and you're home with that's great. Amazing. Are you happy at the end of the day? Amazing. Just don't poo-poo. It's what we were talking about off camera. Just don't, for not having decorum or not, not, like, don't look at my lifestyle.
Or I think it's also the whole, like, the kids element of it, too. Like, if you don't have kids, oh, you're so unfulfilled. No, I'm good.
Yeah, you don't want kids?
I'm good. I don't have, do I not want kids? I mean, I'm a little past the point, but it's not, it was never like a thing for me. You know, I'm a great aunt, you know, and I know this.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of that is self-awareness too, right? Like if it happened, it happens.
Yeah.
Or if it happens, it happens.
Yeah.
But it was never high on the, like, again, I wasn't the little girl who grew up like, when I played dolls, there was no mommy and dad. It was mom.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
I used to behead the dolls and cut their hair and do crazy
that's
shit.
pretty on brand for you.
Yeah, that is very
That
on brand. I'm like, Mom, you didn't think to like toss me into a child psychologist? She was like, nah, you're fine.
But you know what I'm saying? Like, I didn't have the tradition. That wasn't necessarily what I saw growing up.
Yeah.
But like, I love seeing my friends in love. I love seeing a happy couple. I love seeing, you know, beautiful kids being raised. So long as it is emotionally, you know, and mentally and physically stable and healthy, I think that whatever you choose to do is great. I also hope that you have some sort of financial independence. That way you're not forced, as many women were not that long ago, to stay in unhealthy situations. Like, I wish we could have that conversation that now women, because of, you know, opportunity and options, are no longer forced to deal with low quality men's bullshit.
Yeah, exactly. Or,
do you know what I'm saying?
Be trapped in abusive situations.
You know, and we can take a little longer to decide who's right for us, who isn't, you know, like, especially if it's not a priority. If that traditional life isn't a priority for you, to your point, it does not make you of less quality. And I think you also have to pay less attention. Like, that's just getting fed to you.
Yeah,
like, at
exactly.
that point, like, look at the people in the comments. Half of them divorced, whatever.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
half
or
of them,
miserable.
If you go to their page, they don't even have a profile photo. And if you look at the captions, they don't know the difference between there, and they are. And you're like, oh, okay, they don't even know.
But I also think that there's something to be said too about the way that men on the internet talk to women. And I know we're wrapping up, but like, that's a whole other conversation, because I think when you say controversial things, or when you take, or you know, you have a hard stance, or you draw a hard line on certain subjects, I never in my life thought a man I didn't know would say some of the things that have been said to me.
Oh, me too.
In the comments on YouTube, on Instagram, like, it's wild. So it goes back to what I said, is like, how quickly we have devolved from the decorum. But now you want to, but on one side you want to talk about be a traditional woman. It's like, why y'all not traditional men no more
at all? Yeah,
like,
exactly.
It just amazes me when we pick and choose, when we want to throw around traditional and the good old day and whatever. But those same people that are yelling and screaming about that are the same person calling you a cunt, a whore, a slut, a hoe.
And you want to come
like,
at me for acting on a sexual desire and tell me that I'm classless when you're in a comment thread to a complete. Well, I also think too, in general, like, we just spend too much time on our phones. Like, everybody does. And I know that's the cliche thing to say, but I also think I think the amount of time we spend on our phones is making us angrier.
But they
I
would never
really
say
do.
Oh, for sure.
It's making us
1000%.
angrier. We're just consuming too much of it, and now we're annoyed.
Well, and we also don't know how to have an actual conversation.
Yeah.
You're used to being able to leave your comments and then move on and scroll away and whatever, as opposed to when you have to actually look at somebody and call them a cunt, a whore, or whatever to their face. Like,
exactly.
Are you really like?
Yeah, I'm like, get out.
You and I do that on a regular basis.
Well, I'm always like, get out of the comment thread and come to a comedy show and heckle the shit out of me and tell me I'm a slutty, non-traditional, manic, you know, whatever. But I mean, I also think men in general are angry. And like, for the most part, if I were to make a generalization, like, if you do look at the majority of school shooters and active violence and comment threads, well, there's are men okay? Well, I ask myself.
And I think that we have to take a little bit of the blame for that.
Yeah.
And I say that because, you know, I don't know, maybe since the 70s, we've been proving that their mediocrity is exactly that.
Yeah.
Mediocrity.
Yeah.
And I don't, again, step the fuck up. They're the first ones to tell you to put on your big girl pants, or
and get over it,
or pull yourself up by the bootstraps. And it's like, okay, so before, when you were the only ones who could get entrance into certain universities, or before when you're the only ones who were allowed to sit at the table in the boardroom, you know, that mediocrity was okay. But now you've got a whole lot of other people vying for the same position, and now the actual competition is exactly that. There's no more attaboys, or there's fewer. There's less of those opportunities, right? Obviously, we know that that's the old boy network still exists in many circles, but the competition is greater, and that is what I think they're crying about, right?
I think so too.
Am I crazy? So I mean, we have to take some of the blame for you know, having to fight as hard as we had to fight to get there. God damn it.
Yeah.
That work and not wanting to go back
Yeah.
We're making them work too hard.
Yeah,
We're pointing out that they are subpar.
Yeah, exactly.
And they don't really like it.
No, at all. And things are getting done better, and we're coming for their
and they actually
positions.
have to work.
Yeah,
they actually have to step up. They actually have to think and achieve and be, I don't even want to use the phrase outside of the box, but there's innovation and there's other things, they're no longer allowed to speak for what people like you and I look like, right? They're no longer allowed to tell us what we like because we come in and we're like,
right.
You thought you knew what women like, but you know.
Not really. And the blanket they put on it is you're not traditional. Should you challenge or not do what they expected or what the precedent is? But we're coming for them. And we're coming for their jobs. Yeah. And also to all the women that are, you had also said something earlier, but what I admire about you is I've always left room for everybody at the table, and you're very good about that. And you're very secure. No, yeah. And put me into radio. Like, you helped and recommended me and vouched for me. And I think that's true feminism to me. And it's just,
I don't think there's anything more heartbreaking.
Yeah.
As a woman who works in a predominantly male industry, which is most industries, right? Even still.
In general, yeah.
To come across a woman who pretends to be pro-women.
And is not.
And then at the first sign of not even competition, but just like intrigue or, questioning, automatically flips the script.
Sometimes even just aptitude. They just see that you're able.
Yeah.
They just see, or a different opinion.
But
or vocal, or
But it's sad because there's a lot of women. There's a lot of women who pretend to be, girls. And I'm truly I'm truly envious in a good way. And I don't know if there's even the possibility to be that when I see genuine friendships or genuine, sisterhood amongst, different groups of women who are out there supporting and sharing wins and bigging each other up.
And hustling
together. And you can tell, because you can tell when it's fake. You can tell when it's genuine. And I love to see it when it's genuine, because I know that, there's a lot of situations where, unfortunately, they'll help you get in the door, but then they will be the biggest gatekeepers once you're there.
They definitely will. And I also think the performative feminism that we've experienced in the last couple of years is actually working against us, because it's putting this very fake, sugar-coated... Yes, queen.
Yeah.
Amazing. Oh my God. Well, and I think what it's doing is it's clouding our judgment, and we're like, hey, if you actually strip all of that away, how is she speaking to you in the workplace? Or what is she saying when you're not in the room?
Well,
is she getting you hired? Is she actually sharing your wins? Is she recommending you? You know what I mean?
Is she telling you when you're falling flat? Like, is she also being honest?
Honest.
Like, and that is the other part of it. I think there's a lot of women out here taking advantage of women who are down and out, who are in a I don't want to say a destitute situation, but I see it all the time.
Yeah.
Buy my course, do this, come to this empowerment, seminar, whatever. Like, it's sisterhood, it's this, it's that. And it's like,
and I will help you redo your life or whatever.
You're literally taking their last $500.
Last whatever. As opposed to, and you're probably the person in your friend group that doesn't answer the call when your friend actually needs something, or or your friend needs advice and you probably don't have the time for her, and you say something like, it is what it is, or whatever. But you're also the same person building a pyramid scheme and taking her last $500 and trying to brainwash her that everything she knows is wrong and she should listen. And also, how narcissistic is that? Like I also know older women too that think that you're a hot mess for not doing things how they do. And I'm like, you're a narcissist for thinking that there's only one way of doing things and it's your way. And if I don't do it your way, I'm a low quality woman, I'm wrong, and that's what those like life coaching, that's how I feel about Taylor Swift. And I know we don't have a ton of time to get into it, but everyone's like, how are you not a bigger Taylor Swift fan? And I'm like, listen, I can respect her strategy, I can respect her business, I can respect everything, but I do think her audience of women are women who haven't found a voice for themselves, because it feels a little cult-like. It feels they seem a little blind to her. It seems a little like, and maybe that's what they need, and that's great if going to the concert and spending too much money and screaming the lyrics helps them. Honey. Those lyrics, but
she's accessible. Like think about it. I need you to think about
accessible.
this. How many people can honestly tell themselves, I could be Beyonce?
No, nobody.
Not many.
But how many people can be like, I could be a white woman who hasn't had enough protein and I have a Stanley Cup to prove it? Like, a lot of, that's what I always say. I'm like, she's
Guilty.
not for me. She's just not for me. That's what I.
So again, I think that there's, and you see that across the board. I could go through a ton of artists that I think have, people connect with because they feel like if they can do it, I can do it.
Yeah.
And it's not to say she's not a great songwriter. The
That she hasn't
accolades
done
are
something
ridiculous
right in her career.
I mean,
Yes.
and she hasn't been groundbreaking. And I do love the fact that she uses her platform to encourage people to vote and to take action and to get out there and make their voices heard. So, but I can understand where you're coming from.
Yeah.
When you say I'm not going to see Taylor Swift.
I'm not. And just for me personally,
I
it's
did
like,
go see Beyonce.
I will see Beyonce 100%. Yeah. And it's, I also say too, like it's, oh man, we can go
And I
through.
would go see Pink.
Oh yeah.
Like she's my jam.
I love her.
You know what I mean?
And I can also say this too with like white culture and black culture as well too. Like white women get upset and it's a tweet. It's 140 characters and that's what they're capable of doing, or 140 characters on a Yelp review. Black women get upset and they make art. I feel like it's
and they've
true.
got a lot to make art with.
They've got a lot. And like if you even just listen to the nature of Taylor's songs, some of them are vengeful, some of them are empowering, most of them are kind of whiny. And like Beyonce gets cheated on and there's a visual out. She makes music industry history. But there's a visual.
There is, but there's also a bigger conversation that I think is very, once again, reflective of who we are as a society.
Yeah.
If you think about the Grammys, right, and we talk about people who win awards and how that process goes.
Yeah.
In order to fully appreciate somebody's work, you have to be able to immerse yourself in it. To a degree from where they're coming from, right?
To see the full picture.
So if the Academy or the people who are voting on things
Are
looks
white
a
men.
certain way for the most part, who are they relating more to?
Right.
Whiny Taylor Swift.
Yeah.
Or badass Beyonce.
Right.
Do you understand what I'm saying?
No, I
So when
totally-
we have these conversations, and it's why conversation is so important.
It's also why representation is so important as
1000%,
well
1000%.
too, because it's also people are lazy and don't want to even try to see the experience of something that's so far away from them, so they can't see the value now in the art, which is also, I mean, so many people do that with artists and comedians too. It's like, if it doesn't immediately impact me and it didn't happen to me, then I'm gonna write that musician or that artist or that comedian off as bad and not funny and not relevant. And I'm like, no, you just haven't, you allow yourself to experience something.
And the other thing is though, and that's why I think we were talking about, I don't know if we were talking about on the podcast or before, but you have to remind yourself constantly that not everybody thinks like you. And I find myself constantly trying to bring myself back to those places because again, you love a good conversation, you love a dialogue, you love a confrontation. You're going to ask the whys, like with something. I use this often when I'm talking to people who don't understand the LGBTQIA plus community, right? And I'm like, have you ever actually sat down though and had a conversation and asked a member of the LGBT to tell you their story?
Yeah.
And have you ever really listened?
Yeah.
Like, have you ever really taken the time to just focus in and hear and absorb what they're telling you?
And that same person is probably telling you, no way, why would I do that? That would make me gay. Being gay is contagious. I'm making a joke, but yeah.
But even if they don't take it to that extreme, it's like they have these opinions on something, but they've never once engaged somebody in the conversation. It's like, if you don't understand, Beyonce, where she was coming from
with a country album or with a visual album
or any of them, you don't understand why she's so supportive of the queer community or what the queer community's impact has been on Black culture, Black queer community, all of these things, or vice versa. If you don't engage in the conversation and you don't ask somebody who's actually lived it, you're never going to have any real perspective
and or opinion. You can't join. Also, a lot of people.
You can have an opinion.
Yeah,
you can have an opinion. They're like
That's
assholes.
true.
Everybody's got one.
Yeah,
but having an opinion based on perspective, having an opinion based on real lived experience, is very different.
And information
than something you saw in a headline.
People are quick to join the argument, but not willing to have the conversation. If that makes any sense. That's as far as as they can take it is the comment section. All they have is a comment as a bystander, as somebody who didn't actually ever go to a drag show or have a conversation with a queer person or have a conversation with someone who's had an abortion or whatever the case is. And it's like, actually, all you are capable of is 140 characters in a comment thread.
Maybe that, you know what though? That might actually be a nice way to approach things from now. If I ask you for an opinion, I didn't ask you for a comment. I asked you for an actual opinion. And there's a difference. And maybe we should start highlighting.
Well, because I think the comment, you're outside of the arena. Like, you know that remark they always say, like, if you're not even in the arena, shut your mouth, you're not fighting. You can't play. There's a comment, you're a spectator. The opinion puts you a little bit more in the arena. You have at least have some roots to why you think what you think. And then the conversation is quite literally putting yourself in the fight. And experiencing the resistance. This was amazing.
I love you to pieces.
I love you more. We could have done this for 2 more hours.
Yeah, we could have. Well, listen, just keep becoming more and more famous, and I'll try to at least keep my job. And then maybe you'll have me back, and we can have a continuation.
I'm going to try to at least keep my job.
We can have a continuation. We'll just pick up where we left off.
I can't believe they still let women do comedy. Am I right?
Like I said, 2024. November's right around the corner. They might not.
So, you know what? To Sean's point,
every moment.
Take away my damn right to vote. I don't want to do it. I'm tired.
So exhausted.
Maybe I will become a trad wife, and I'll just be like, honey,
I don't want to think for myself anymore.
It's truly, why did we ever fight for the right to work? Am I right? No, I'm kidding. Where can people follow you? What are you working on? What do you want to plug?
You know, you can listen to me on the iHeartRadio app on 103.5 The Beat. That's in Miami. I do afternoons there. I'm also hosting a television show for the Miami Dolphins on Valley Sports.
So exciting.
You know, my podcast is on hiatus right now, but Brittany has been an incredible guest multiple times on the Man TF Up podcast. You know, and just social media. Kimmy Be Official everywhere, but. Yeah. You know, I don't make my own mozzarella, so I don't know how many people want to follow me.
Actually, I'm an Italian woman and I couldn't make my own bread either to save my life. So
we should do like a
trad wife cooking show.
Oh my God!
But we should be naked while we do it or something.
I mean, we should make it like real 1950 styles. Get you guys quaaludes, you know.
We have to do it in heels with the hair perfectly coiffed. You know what I'm saying?
And an apron, but we're naked under the apron.
Smoking a cigarette. Smoking a cigarette on some sort of like diazepam or whatever it is. Whatever those pink little pills were they used to take back in the day.
Liquor.
How did you do any of this shit? They were high? Yeah.
It sounds amazing, right?
I mean, that would be a melding of both worlds. Like, look, I'm traditional enough to make my own bread, but I'm untraditional enough to be smoking a joint right now.
Right? There you go.
Best of both worlds. Yay.